Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 found footage horror anthology Christmas film, The Christmas Tapes. The film stars Dave Sheridan, Vernon Wells, and Greg Sestero. Right, okay, so what we have here is a found footage horror anthology, two genres that I generally really quite like, so I was quite interested in checking this one out. And what we get here is four stories. Well, it's really three, but they present four stories. And you get like a wraparound story. Now, the wraparound story is there is a family at Christmas time. They get a visitor at their door, Jeff, played by Greg Sestero, who's a bit like a Poundland Owen Wilson, I suppose. He talks very much like him, and he looks a little bit like him. He claims that his car's broken down, his phone's no charge, and he's asking for a bit of help. So they invite him in, of course they do, it's Christmas, and things turn ugly fairly quickly. He essentially takes the family hostage and forces them to watch a series of films, the films that we watch as audience members, which make it a horror anthology. So the first story was called Travel Buggers, I believe, arguably my favourite story, this one. Much more of a traditional found footage tale, this one. And you get like a couple who are doing like a travel vlog at Christmas time. The male or the husband or the boyfriend would rather be at home with his family. She's really keen on doing this vlog. And they kind of get visited, should I say, in their tent. It's either Christmas morning or something like that. And things don't exactly go well for them. That's all I really want to say on this story. Like I say, much more of a traditional found footage tale, this one. You get the introduction to the characters, we get to learn who they are. I actually quite liked the characters. I liked the people. They felt real, they felt genuine. And there was some really creepy stuff going on in this story, you know what I mean? But it was very much by the numbers sort of stuff, camping in the dark, in a tent, creepy noises, things happen. And, it becomes like a fight for survival type situation. But I think it kind of worked quite well on kind of playing on fears that we all have, sort of thing. So I quite like this one. It's one of those that I actually, you think that'd actually been quite a good full-length found footage film if they kind of expanded on it a little bit. But I enjoyed it. Now, the second one was called The Christmas Gift. And it starred Vernon Wells, the legendary Vernon Wells, who essentially plays Santa Claus, or a version of Santa Claus in this film, where he's hired by some guy who wants to surprise his children by hiding in a gift. And then he's going to get Vernon Wells to deliver him to the house, and he's going to pop out of this box and surprise his kids on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. However, this doesn't go according to plan because Vernon Wells is not best pleased with him for something that happened historically between them that this guy has no idea of or of aware of it. So things take a sinister turn fairly quickly. Again, a fairly strong story, this one. Vernon Wells carries this one through, and I thought it was quite a powerful story and fairly creepy as well at times. There's a scene where Mrs. Claus gives a foot massage that, will seriously creep you out. And it does get a little bit silly, but it's meant to be a little bit silly. It's kind of described, this film, as like a comedy anthology film. And whereas the first story, there wasn't really much comedy in it other than the guy wisecracking, this story has moments of comedy in it and silliness, but it is still quite sinister too. And that takes us on to the third story, which to me was utterly pointless. It didn't feel like it was even 5 minutes long, and it was basically this guy who had a chip put in his head and ordered to deliver a present, and if he doesn't deliver it on time, boom, sort of thing. It was a really daft thing, and I don't understand why it was in there at all, really. It didn't really make sense. And then the fourth story was called The Christmas Spirit. And this one started off fairly normally, fairly found footagey, if you like. You get this couple who's just moved house. The moving company isn't going to be delivering their possessions for a few days, so they're stuck at Christmas. He pops out to get an inflatable bed. She puts up some Christmas decorations that she's found in the house that kind of trigger something, some kind of spirit within the home. Things get a little bit creepy, and the day after Christmas Eve, they call in a spiritualist or a ghost hunter, or whatever you want to call them. Unfortunately, it's played by Dave Sheridan, called Paranormal Perry. Now, if anybody turns up at your house called Paranormal Perry, you'd be kind of like, see you later. But no, they let him in because they're kind of desperate. And he's such a quirky character. This is by far the most comedic story. He's so off kilter and weird, this character, and frustrating too, because it goes on and on and on. They kind of go on and on and on with it. This persona of his, where he just kind of, you don't know whether he's being serious, whether he's being stupid, whether it's just his quirky personality, or whether there's something wrong with him. He's a very strange character. And then it kind of ends quite abruptly with some sinister goings on. Now, there are aspects of this last story that I quite enjoyed. I thought it was, I don't know, it's hard to describe really how I feel about this last story. It didn't feel scary in any way. It felt certainly more comedic. And it took an age to kind of set it up, sort of thing. We spent far too long with the couple moving into the house and realising, they weren't going to get the possessions and all this kind of stuff. I think probably this anthology would have probably benefited from the third story, rather than being 5 minutes and pointless, putting another story in there for a good 10 or 15 minutes and kind of shortened the rest of the stories maybe by about 5 minutes. Because I do feel like maybe certainly the first story felt a bit 5 minutes overly long. And certainly the last story felt like it was stretched out a little bit too long as well for a horror anthology. So I think they probably could have maybe put a longer third story in there rather than the pointless one that we got. And then the wraparound story, again, it was just, well, it wasn't very good, I suppose. It was okay, but ultimately it came to nothing. You've got this guy forcing his family to watch these short movies. And ultimately, I didn't feel there was really any payoff at all in regards to that. So it was just a vehicle, really, to get these films in. So, in the VHS player to watch these short stories. So I think there are strengths and weaknesses with this found footage anthology film. I think the three stories that were presented with the three main stories are actually pretty good, and there's no real dull stories or anything. There's no real clangers here. They're all actually fairly watchable. So it's not actually too bad, really, this one. It's worth checking out. There are moments as well where I felt the budget certainly let it down. Occasionally it felt cheap. And it also felt like, as well, at times they weren't really running from a script. Which was odd. It almost felt like they were making it up on the spot. Maybe they wanted to make it feel more genuine, so they gave them a little bit of leeway to kind of make up their own dialogue. Because you could see them occasionally. Even Vernon Wells did it a couple of times. They were kind of tripping up over the words, but they didn't kind of cut and say, right, we'll do another take. It was almost like they were giving them freedom to say what they wanted when they wanted to, almost, and they would just film it to make it feel more realistic and grounded, maybe. And that did work, but occasionally it didn't, because, like I say, it just felt like they were fluffing the lines occasionally. So yeah, this is worth checking out if you like found footage and you like anthology films. There are some bits and pieces in this film that I think you might certainly appreciate. It's a good attempt despite the low budget. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.